Look at me sitting here looking like Willie Nelson. Anytime I'm on camera, I never really care how I look. I don't care, like, really how I look. Because the point is to be seen and not heard. Get my drift? Now drifting. Oh, and I suck my teeth on video. That shows how much I actually care. Anyways, my thoughts and opinions on the death penalty. The death penalty. What do you think about the death penalty? How do you feel that the death penalty has actually changed? Do you think the death penalty has actually changed for the better and for the benefit of society? Or are you not with it at all? Some people actually don't believe in a death penalty, as in it shouldn't exist. Some people believe that the death penalty is there to serve greater justice, where somebody may have taken someone else's life. And so they may feel that the death penalty is of benefit towards a grieving family who can't get that family member back. I want you to tell me what you think about that sort of thing, that type of thing. What I feel about the death penalty, also known as, don't they call it capital punishment? My mom, how I first heard about the death penalty was when my mom was studying criminal justice in college. She didn't get a degree in it because my mom she's like a wanderer in life, a drifter, so she's kind of like all over the place, as I stated before. So she didn't receive her degree in criminal justice, and yet she actually studied the very, sciences and nature behind that sort of thing. And one of the subjects involved was the death penalty, capital punishment. So that was like one of my first ever exposures to that sort of thing. I mean, you oftentimes you hear about it on the news, but when you're young, you kind of really don't pay attention to that sort of thing. When you're young watching the news, it's not really something that piques your interest, because the news is always flighty with death and chaos in the first place. And so to see it a lot of times is to be desensitized to it, which me growing up in the environment from where I came, that's how it was in relation to sort of certain types of deaths that I would hear about. Even the death penalty, you'll see such and such, was tried on trial and whatever happened, and now they're putting him to death, and instead of them using the electric chair, you will see the video tape with the guard standing, over on the side on deck, and them whatever soon enough going to inject him, and then stating about his last meal. So it just, yeah, that was my first time my mom studying that. So I would listen to her thoughts and her opinions, because she had to write paper after paper about it as well. And she was never with the death penalty. She had her reasons of why she wasn't really with it, and more so the reason why my mom wasn't completely with the death penalty, because see, in many of these trials, besides the death and who got killed, sometimes there's innocent people that have actually been put to death. They've been tried and served their time, and then at the end of it, they were actually put to death over a crime they didn't even commit. It's been known. It's been known and proven. And my mom, when she had to do her research papers and all that, she pulled and dug up a lot of that information. I used to be sitting and in the house while she was writing her papers, and just some of the facts and information that she had gained about many of these men that were in fact innocent, and yet they were being put to death. Like, that's a lost cause. That's a waste of life over something that you didn't commit. So in the area, I could agree with her with that. And so my thoughts on what I feel about it today, it's like, somebody's close in my family, right? There's somebody close in my family. Their son is actually my first cousin. And the guy that they're in a relationship with, they're in a relationship with a guy that had actually committed a mass murder. And I spoke on this before. He committed a mass murder where I guess he raped some girls and then killed them. And one of them I think was 11 or 12 years old, something like that. 20 something years ago this happened. And so they're thinking about releasing him because he served his time of 20 years, right? But he did commit a mass murder. And so me, I don't really know him personally, but I would be scared to be around him for something like that, because see, to commit a mass murder like that is to know that mental illness or something stands behind that. And the individual in my family who is involved with this man, they're lovers or whatnot, she doesn't fear him because she said she met him before. See, I never met the man, so I don't even know, but she said that she knew about him before he went in. They were friends way before he went in or whatnot. And I think even friends somewhere around the time period he committed these murders. That type of activity I stand far away from, because to have a form of mental illness, it's not for me to prejudge or even judge it. That's not for me to do. It's more for me to study it. And yet I can't be around individuals that are into that type of thing, because see, to hang too close to somebody that is into that activity of murdering people and butchering people to death on some Ted Bundy type of crazy activity is to get drawn up into that type of stuff. And so I can't really be bothered. And yet I don't judge him for it because I don't know him personally. I would have to know the sciences behind his behavior in the area of psychology and why he does what he does, as well as need to know, is there mental illness, which it seems like it is. And not only that, with the person in my family who's in a relationship with him, I don't really judge her, but I just, hopefully she's thinking of making the right choices when she does things. And sometimes, you got to consider making better choices and picking men, because just because you say that you know someone, you don't really completely know that person. You can get that person home. I'm saying a mass murder, you can get that person home in your bed and they were one way talking to you on the phone in jail, and then once you get them home, they completely flip out on the other side of the bed and become something you ain't never even seen before. But by then it's too late, because you done moved them in your house. You done moved this mass murderer into your house, and now you can't even get them out your house, or your space, in your bed. That type of stuff like that leads to stalking. It leads to stalkers. It leads to all type of things. So, like I said before, I don't know the whole get down. I just go by what I was told, because he was in the news, and he's often in the news about his release. So I don't know. But going back about the the death penalty and things like that, I don't know. It just, I can't really say I'm with it, and I can't say that I'm against it, because there's two sides to even that. And there's probably more than just two sides to even that, in the area of who is to actually say. I can't even say, because see, this is why I feel the way that I feel, standing in the middle of looking at it from an outside perspective, in the area of putting somebody to death who has killed people, even people that have shot up schools. Because see, for me to be against that, no, let me speak on about me, if I agreed to it. If I agreed to that, I feel like I probably would be in the wrong of agreeing to putting a man to death I ain't never met. Because see, he could be innocent, but who's to say? He might be proven guilty. He might have killed a whole bunch of people. Like say that young kid at the school that I said about with the Florida shooting, right? Or even that nightclub down in Florida, right? He could have shot and killed many of people like that. But who's to say that when you put a man like that to death and he dies, who's to say that he won't meet heaven on the other side? See, many of us humans, and even religious people, we all try to say where we think we going when we meet the other side in relation to death. What stands on the other side? You have people that fear death. They don't want to stand nowhere close to it. Then you got other people that welcome death. And then you got people that live judgmental, especially really deep religious people that try to tell you you're not going to heaven if you don't live like this, or if you don't live in the box. They'll tell you you're not going to heaven, and they'll tell you at the same time, in the same breath, that they are too, in fact, going to heaven, right? And so for me, I just, hold on, let me clear. I'm sorry, because I'm thinking about, as I'm sitting here thinking about this, I'm thinking about something else that I was going to make a video before this about something totally different, and I was trying to get my answers out, but they wasn't coming to me, and so they're coming to me right now. And it's actually getting in the way, bombarding what I want to say. So, thank you, universe, for that answer. But I'm sorry. See, this type of thing, usually when you're trying to gain answers for stuff before you create some content, you're trying to get the answers in the here and now, and yet sometimes the here and now is not time at that specific time. It comes to you later, and all the answers is coming now. It's cutting me off. All the answers is completely just blocking everything I want to say. The answers from when I was like, okay, universe, I'm trying to figure out this, they're coming to me right now. So hopefully that can stop until I finish this video. So when I was saying about sometimes people just feel like they know where they're going in death, but especially really religious, deeply religious people, because I grew up in an area where religious people used to tell me that if I didn't change my ways, I was going to hell. Mind you, I wasn't even out here committing all type of sins. I wasn't living like that, and I wasn't out here murdering and castrating all type of people and stoning people to death. So who was them to say where I'm going, telling me I'm going to hell, and yet they're going to heaven, and yet they're mistreating? What I've noticed is many of the people that are highly religious, a lot of times they'll stand bald-faced liars in your face by telling you that you are going to hell because you're committing all these sins, and yet many of them are committing some of the most worst sins that can ever be committed to man. I'm saying in the way that they treat people. Many, and I'm not trying to pass judgment on religious people. You got to remember, I grew up with many of them. So they down you in various areas of telling you you're going to hell. Just remember, when you die, you're going to hell because you're not getting right with Jesus. And yet they're mistreating everybody around them just by judging everybody around them and not accepting as God or whoever would want them to accept. So many of them will be the first one to say that a mass murderer is going to hell. And yet who's to know? Because on the other side could be heaven awaiting that mass murder just as much as it's awaiting that Christian person who follows the faith of Christianity. So that's why I say, in the area of how I think and believe, that's why I stand so close in the middle, because to not know what stands on the other side of death is to not predict it in the area of saying who needs to go there in such quick amount of time. Yes, that man, if he killed and murdered somebody, say he killed kids like this mass murder I spoke about, then he needs to actually pay for his actions. And yet I think maybe he needs to rot away in jail more so than actually being put to death. I do. Because see, what humans don't understand is to sit around with your thoughts in a 6 by 9 cell. A 6 by 9 cell, I think, is the average jail size. To sit around in a 6 by 9 jail cell with your thoughts, and you're allowed to have nothing else, and you're under maximum security, is to be left with your thoughts and nothing else. Your thoughts is enough to drive you crazy, right? If you're not allowed access to any mental stimulus outside of that jail cell hours on end, and yet all you have is your thoughts. You might have books, but after a while that gets old for a person that's sitting in a jail cell more so than a person on the outside world. Because being on the outside world, reading a book brings variety, but a person in jail, so that's a whole different thing. So you're left with your thoughts, and you know, to be left with your thoughts in a 6x9 jail cell is to be tormented by your very thoughts. Yes, it is. To be left in a 6x9 cell with nothing else to do and no other type of activity is to be tormented by your own thoughts. It is. That's what I feel. And so I just feel that that will serve the family a greater justice than putting somebody to death. Because see, we human beings, we're nothing but in physical, spiritual aspect, we're nothing but particle material. When you die, your bodily material functions, waste, whatever else, that all goes back to the earth, right? And yet your spirit has to return back somewhere. So it's particle floating material, right? Which probably stands and revolves all around us in the atmosphere. It becomes one even more greater and deeper with the universe. And I think so even more so for these people like a Ted Bundy, or people that's shooting up these schools. Like, I really don't think that the universe, or even God, or even a Christian God, will look at us as being different from one another. In the area of passing judgment, in the last days of saying, okay, like they say, when you stand before God, God is going to judge you. Well, no one knows that either. That might not even be exist. See, that might be a man-made policy that was made up. You don't find out that until you reach the other side. I have yet to meet somebody that had actually died, got to the other side, said that they was judged by God, and then returned here back to earth to tell everybody about them witnessing it. That type of stuff is not real, and it does not exist, because to be judged before God in the area of death is to leave this earth completely. If I'm going to be judged by God for my sins and everything like that, and he's going to judge me whether I'm to pass through heaven or hell, that's for me to stand in front of him and for him to say it, and for me to never come back to this earth and share that information. It does not happen. Because remember, to be judged is to be taken right then. It's either a yes, I'm going to heaven, or no, I'm going, instead of me, it's either yes, I'm going to heaven, or no, I'm not going to heaven, and yes, I'm going to hell instead. There's no coming back after that. Because you died, remember? So there's no returning back to earth telling other people the fact that you were just judged. Because what will be the point of you even returning in the first place? That means you didn't really die. What you more than likely experienced was a near-death experience. There's millions of people all around the globe that probably every other day experience a near-death experience, and yet they have not completely died. And yes, they think that they have actually died when they haven't. They haven't crossed over completely, and yet many of them feel that they did. So you can't tell me that there's a difference between me and a Ted Bundy in the area of going to heaven and hell. I'm an everyday living human being who would not harm a soul. That's not my intention, to go off and slice somebody's neck off or blow their brains out. That's not my intention. I don't hold the interest in that, because I'm more into giving the universe more life, not in taking it away. But still, the universe itself, or even God itself, or whatever you want to call it. See, people get caught up in the names of calling this and that, but whatever you want to call it, it's still the same. I still don't think that it makes a difference in us human beings. Whether we are an everyday person or a Ted Bundy or a mass murderer that shot up a school, when it's time to go home, if that's a place of heaven, then I think and believe that all of us will meet that place in time. Even a mass murder. I just feel, I sense that. I've been feeling and sensing that for a long time. I have been sensing that for a very long time. That all of us, when we die, we all return to the same place. We do. We do. That's all I can say about that, is I just feel and sense that when we die and it's time for relatives and all that to grieve for us because we done left this earth and we're gone, we transition to the other side, and yet that other side might not even be heaven itself. See, man in relation to religions has invented and inverted all these different terms. And we got so many different religions to want to explain and say what heaven can be when you touch heaven or when you cross over. There's so many terminologies and definition, and yet it still all add up to one and the same. Because all human beings and all life itself is one with the universe in itself. Or one with God in itself. Whatever you think, choose, and believe. It's all one. We're all one. So, when somebody tells me that we're going to heaven, that's terminology that has been made up by man, right? It's a man-made substance that goes along with the actual Bible, biblical form of man-made substance, right? Touching nirvana, some people say that, right? To feel and touch heaven. But who's to say that that actually exists? See, any one of us don't even know. We can cross over tomorrow, meet the other side, and it's nothing completely like what we were told in these Bibles or in these biblical manuals. You can die tomorrow, cross over, and you'll be back in the atmosphere probably looking at, wow, I'm dead. But I can still see everything as if I was a physical being. I think that type of thing exists. And yet to give it a name is to say that it's in fact heaven, because it's not physical earth. You got what I'm saying? Everything in life, it seems, in physical form has to have a name to it in order to give it a definition. That way, so that everybody know where they exist in their place in life. And so I think in the area of heaven in relation to death is one of those things. It's just one of those things that people have put a name to and said, when you die, this is where you go. Because even in ancient Egypt, you had, was it Thor? You had all the different ancient gods back in ancient Egyptian times, and they spoke of their own type of heaven. And it's so interesting to say that their type of heaven, supposedly in writing form, also meets up with the Bible form of heaven. I mean, there's really no difference in all these different religions. Certain particular ones, I'm saying, when they try to explain what a heaven form is and what it consists of and what it's going to bring to you in the afterlife. Yes, the afterlife. You hear so much. Nobody could never really truthfully say what the afterlife is. They can't. Nobody can walk up to me and say, you know what, I died the other day. I went to the afterlife and I'm going to tell you a story about what it is. They can't. All they can tell you is the near-death experience and nothing beyond that. That was a near-death experience and nothing beyond that, because to leave earth and die is to be gone forever. There's no returning. It's none. Jesus still has yet to return, and even others outside of him. So that's the scary part for the families who are grieving by the simple fact that their loved ones were killed through a mass murder. See, to grieve is to want some type of form of justice, right? By having someone else put to death. I just said that earlier in the previous part of the video, the beginning. If my loved one is killed, then I want justice, right? But justice might not even stand in that. It might not. Because nobody knows. I'm talking in circles, but nobody knows what stands on the other side of death. Like, yes, that person or that child or that man or that woman that was brutally murdered in the worst way, a heinous act, I can't even say it right. That was a heinous act in the worst way you can kill somebody, right? You can gain nothing back from that. And yet, those individuals that were killed more than likely met what is considered heaven by religious standards, right? But that murder once he was put to death, he probably greeted heaven as well. Because remember, the other side, I just keep looking at that. And I've been looking at this for a very long time. I've been looking at this since like elementary school, when people used to say, you know, there's heaven and there's hell. I'm like, I was back then thinking, how could you tell me that and ain't nobody ever been? You don't just say, okay, I'm going to die today and then I'm going to go to heaven and then I'm going to come back and just tell everybody how heaven is. That does not exist. On the other side, I just feel and sense that there's a free flow form of spiritualness, the connectedness between humans and the universe, and that's it. Like that music video, when I feel like when you cross over, it's almost like going through a waterfall. It's all particle, clear particle. Remember that video I was telling my aunt about that? By TLC, the music video called Waterfalls. Don't go chasing waterfalls. When the girls was under the waterfall, right? They were up under this waterfall. They looked at human form, but then all of a sudden, their body was completely crystallized and clear. You could see through. Nothing was there but like a spiritual form of clearness and clarity. As if you were just looking at the spirit itself. And that's what I feel crossing over is like. On the other side, there is nothing more. That's what I think and I feel. There is nothing more of in the area of, yes, you might get over there and it might feel good. That might be why they call it heaven in religious texts. You might get over there on the other side of crossing over and you feel good and you feel warm and you're in this light and this glow and everything is what some would call heaven. Basically, you're a free floating being. You don't have the burdens of everyday human life because you're not dragged down by being a human and living and enduring this human life. But on the other side, you're just a floating aspect and nothing more than particles, right? I don't know. This is a rambling video. It is. Because who am I to say that man, if religious people really want to question me on this, who is to say that a Ted Bundy is not, who's to say that Ted Bundy, the man that murdered all them kids or whatever he was doing crazy, who's to say that man is not in heaven on the other side? Nobody knows. Ted Bundy right now, oh, let me say it. Ted Bundy right now could be sitting next to James Brown. Who knows? We don't know. Who died? Who recently died? Somebody can say Hugh Hefner, the guy over Playboy. I love Playboy. I'm saying the whole branding process of Playboy, right? Did you find out? Did you know that Playboy no longer does nudity? That's interesting in itself. But anyway, Hugh Hefner died, right? Recently. That was some months back. What if Ted Bundy is sitting right now next to Hugh Hefner? Yes, Ted Bundy. What if that man is sitting right now next to Ted Bundy playing cards at the table and drinking whiskey at the table? And not only that, he's with all these other people that was well-known people. And they're in that golden place considered heaven. We will never know until we make it there ourselves. See, but did I ever say that I was for or I was against? I kept saying that I was at the middle road, the middle way, the middle ground. I can't really take sides in that unless something was to happen where I was shipped off, I died, I croaked out, and I just go to heaven, whatever heaven is, and see for myself what is actually real, or go to hell myself and see what is actually real. I really don't think none of that exists. That's the point I'm trying to make. I really don't think heaven and hell is a place that really exists. I think heaven and hell is a place within the mind while you're here on earth. I do. And some people might get mad when I say, as above, so below. You ever heard of that? As above, so below. Basically, you're standing in the same space. And you're not anywhere above that and nowhere near below that. You're in the same space, and it's all a mental thing. And it can also be considered a spiritual thing, right? I don't think heaven and hell exist. There's a lot of people that feel like I feel, and they think like I feel, and yet I have yet to meet them. Maybe I come along as we travel and go along our path and stuff in life. Me and my mom, we get our RV. Maybe I'll meet more people that's like-minded like me, that think in the same way in the area of heaven and hell doesn't exist. It's been given the name heaven and hell. You know what I'm saying? But the experience, I think when you cross over, when you die, I think that there is something where you feel warmth and you feel good, because remember, you escape regular life. You escape everyday burdens. So you have to go to a place that's away from here. And yet I don't think that people is being sent off to these places, in jail buses, say like the mass murder, sent off. Once they cross over and they die, I don't think that they're being sent off in jail buses to go burn off in hell. That type of thing, it doesn't exist. It does not exist. We all experience, if heaven is real and it actually exists, then we all go to that same place. That's what I know, and I can sense internally. I sense and I can feel that. When we die, we all go to the same place. Why wouldn't we? When we die, why wouldn't we all go to the same place? Because see, when we live here on earth, we're living in the same place, right? It's the same as when you die. Why would I live, and I probably need to make a video, probably a 2-minute video asking the question, when I die, why would I go to a whole different place from other human beings? That makes completely no sense. Why would you exist? Why would earth exist for millions and billions of years? Right? Humans come along somewhere in the time frame, and yet they're all existing in one place. But they're living in different cities and states spread amongst in different countries, of different nationalities and religions and differences and all that, right? I'm sorry. The differences is there, and yet we're all in the same place. We're all human beings living this life right here on earth. That does not make sense to me, for when you to die, to be completely disconnected from one another. That doesn't make sense, because we're right here on earth and yet we're not disconnected. It doesn't make it, that totally does not make any sense. I'm saying we are all humans going through trials in life. When somebody say, well, such and such lives in a different country from you. Such and such lives in a different country from you, or a different state. They're still not disconnected from me. We're still experiencing hardships and trials and tragedies and miscommunications. We're still experiencing here on this earth. We're still experiencing trials, right? Hardship on this earth, even though we're living in different states and different countries. So why would you die and be separated in death if you're not separated in birth? That's why I can't really believe in that type of thing of going to hell. If you want to ask me about heaven, yes, I can say maybe heaven does exist, the experience, but the name was given to be called heaven by a man. God or the universe itself might not even call that place heaven. It might be called something else. But I don't understand that. Like, why when people die, why if you're a human, right? Okay, so I got this fainting condition that I was born with, right? And I got my normal everyday suffering that all humans go through, and yet my suffering is completely different from somebody else. You got somebody else that in their family somebody was tragically murdered. Now that person might suffer with something like depression or something like that, right? And then somebody else, they might be a full-blown alcoholic, and they're dealing with the stresses of everyday life, right? There's no separation in any of this. In any of this suffering, there's no separation, because being a human and humanness binds us all together right here on earth. So why would a God take it upon himself or universe to say, well, when you die off and you meet death, I'm going to put you over in heaven for your good works and your good deeds, or you just being a good person overall, or you getting right with me, like some people say, get right with God. Just because you got right with me, I'm going to send you off to heaven. And people that had been doing mass murders and committing all type of crimes and smoking cigarettes and drinking and all this other stuff, I'm going to send you to hell. I don't think that type of stuff exists. Because if it really existed, it will be existing right here on earth. It would. We will be completely separated and suffering. Remember, when you go to hell, it's the worst torment supposedly that you could ever endure lifelong for eternity as a spirit, right? People might say, okay, when you do a bad crime, you're being disconnected from other humans. You're still not disconnected, because once you go to jail, you're still with those other humans, right? That still in itself still don't add up. Because you're not tormented when you go to jail. Some of these people that go to jail have some of the best lives than they ever had on the outside of the four walls of a jail cell. Because remember, to go to jail is to have a lot of things and technologies on the four walls of a jail cell that you actually have on the outside of a jail cell. The reason why many people go back and forth to jail, yes, because they can't break their addiction sometimes of doing crimes, but many of them have an institutionalized mindset that they need structure. And when they're outside on the four walls of jail, they don't know how to manage themselves in the area of taking care of themselves, so they need a jail cell to take care of themselves for them. They need jail staff and guards and commissary and all that to take care of themselves for them, because they don't know how to live a structured life, right? But that still doesn't even meet and greet in the area of hell. They say hell, supposedly nobody has ever been. They say hell is one of the most traumatizing places that you could ever go and experience. And yet somehow when you do the worst thing here in this human life, you're separated from other souls and spirits who are allowed to go to heaven. I don't think that type of thing exists. I just do not think that type of thing exists. Because if you're living here on earth and you're not living right, you will be completely separated and tormented while you were here. And then when you got towards judgment day or whatever, that God will see himself, okay, you didn't, or herself. If you were the type of person that were a bad person, committing all type of crimes and mistreating people while you're here on while you're here on earth, you're doing all type of things that is considered wrong by biblical terms. You're not living right, as biblical people will say, right? A God will see that now and make you pay for that now and make you feel hell while you're here, even before you get to hell. And then when judgment days come, or trying to stand in front of God being judged, that God will say, okay, it's time for you to go to hell. And you will be delivered to hell much more worse and much more deeper. I still don't think that type of thing exists, because I see all type of people that are committing all type of wrong things, and they're committing these things and they're getting away from it. And yet what goes around does come back around, but sometimes not in the most traumatizing way that it can come. Not in the area where they serve other people bad things and doing bad deeds to others. Some of your most worst people that have committed some of the worst things are some of the most blessed people in life. Guarantee that. Look at them. Look at where they're at. Some of the most filthiest rich people are committing some of the most worst devious crimes right here on earth. And they're some of the most blessed people. Their family's not dying off. They're not going through any type of tragedy, right? Some of the devious acts, I can say, in them committing a crime to get more cash, they're probably blessed because remember, to take something is to also give it back. That's customer service in relation to consumerism and all that. Even in the area of greed, to give and to take is also to give back, because in the area of economics, what goes around has to always come back around. So maybe that's why they're blessed. Who knows? Anyway, moving on. A cycle keeps everything going. Economics keeps everything going. And there's greed and everything within that. But to keep a cycle going is to constantly give and take. That's all I'm saying. So their acts might be viewed as criminal, but in the area of economics is really not. I don't know. Who knows? I was just trying to make a point. So moving on. Hell, I don't think to die and go burn off exists. That just doesn't seem totally completely true. It just doesn't. It doesn't, none of it makes sense. Because if it was really truly real, what a God would do or a universe would do, as soon as a person go and they kill somebody like a Ted Bundy, as soon as he go kill somebody, a God will serve him hell right then by putting a torch and setting them on fire right then. Think about it. If heaven was really real, God will really take it upon himself or herself to pipe a torch up a Ted Bundy's ass and set him on fire right then and let him suffer, and then put the flames out and don't let him suffer completely. And then when he died, right before he died, let him stand in front of the guy in judgment and then send him, ship him straight off to hell. And he died and be in flames for eternity. I'm saying his soul be set on fire right then. That's why I can't really get into that type of thing, because it never adds up. It never makes sense. See, to torment somebody and to live wrong, to live a devious life and do very damaging, devious things and activities towards others, is to pay for it in the end, right here on earth. And maybe as well on the other side, but still I don't think that hell exists. I really don't. Who's to say Ted Bundy? Who's some of these other mass murderers? I don't even know. I can't keep up with them. I don't keep up with them because that type of stuff, it makes me sick to my stomach. But for them, if they die and they go to the other side, the only area they might actually go to hell, right? And then be completely disconnected from other humans in a form of, say, being temporarily separated and maybe forced to pay for certain actions that they did. And yet I don't think it's hell. I really don't. I do not think, and I've been feeling this for a very long time. They say go with intuition. They say intuition a lot of times don't fail you. It won't ever, fail you. My intuition has been somewhat slightly off here and there, but when it comes to different things such as the stuff that I'm speaking on, I'm saying the stuff that could be relatable to this type of stuff of heaven and hell. In other areas I have not been wrong. My intuition has not been off in certain things. So heaven and hell, yeah, I don't think hell exists. I don't. I'm repeating again and again and again and always repeating. But hell doesn't, it doesn't exist. Because see, if God really wanted to, or universe, God, whoever you say, if that figure wanted to really make somebody suffer, that figure will make that person suffer in the here and now instead of waiting 20, 30 years from now for them to die off and making them pay for it. Even that don't make sense. Why would I know? Why would I allow somebody to kill somebody in the worst way that you can kill them? Why would I wait until they're dead to make them suffer through that? I'm saying, why would I wait till they're dead to send them and ship them off to hell when I can just make them pay for their actions now, today? If God really wanted you to go to hell, like I said, he would strike you dead right after. A Ted Bundy, he would have struck him dead right after and set his body on fire and say, okay, there's hell for you. There's hell for you, and you're going to rot in hell, set aflame for eternity. That doesn't make sense. That's a long time period. I'm telling you, you got people in jail right now that have killed people 50 years ago. No, does that make sense? There is people that are actually in jail 90 years old, right? And they killed somebody in their 30s or whatever, right? So they've been in jail for that long. There's people that have been in jail for 30 something years, 40 years for killing people. So why wouldn't God just kill them right there on the spot with hell and just put gas to their body and torch them up and let them be set on fire or flame for everybody to see and let them die right then and that, and then take them off to hell? Let them cross over in death as they're set on fire, ablaze. Let them cross over, speak to God, and that God say, you know what, you're coming. You're going to actually go to hell. I'm sending you to hell right now. And then send them off the hill to just burn up for eternity. Like, what is the wait so long? Why the wait so long? Why to let somebody sit and rot in jail for 40 years for life instead of just sending them off right then? Remember, they're the type of people that have did one of the most worst devious acts you can do to kill somebody. And yet they're sitting in jail, rotting away, serving a life term sentence. I'm speaking for those that haven't been put to death. That don't make sense. To bypass common sense and logic is to know and understand that does not make sense for a man to take it upon himself to be in his 20s, go kill a whole bunch of children somewhere, right? Sneak into their bedroom and kill them, and then he be sentenced in jail. And then from his 20-year-old age, he's sentenced to life, and yet he might live to see 95 years old, and then he dies at 95. Why would a God make him serve that long and just rot? Why wouldn't he just take him to hell right then? And why wouldn't he just set him on fire and burn in hell right then? That does not make sense. If hell was totally real. Because see, to pay for action is to go ahead and pay for one. You don't sit around waiting for it to come until you die. People have to use more common sense and logic in looking into these sort of type of things. You can't just go, and I can respect people that believe in the Bible and these religious texts, but I'm not one to sit around and go based upon the words off of somebody else that has told me. I like to research things, and even sometimes in researching, you can't find out these type of things because no one has ever been to the other side of hell or heaven. So yeah, that doesn't make sense. If a man is put to death tomorrow through the death penalty, more than likely that man probably will not be going to hell. I don't think that type of thing is going to happen. He's going to go right along wherever Michael Jackson and all them other people and all them every other day people that's dying every day. See, we have people amongst us that's dying every day. Even newborn babies that are being born with cancer that are dying, or they're just dying in the womb, right? They have to return back to somewhere. And yet it's not hell in a sense. And I really don't think that it might be heaven in a sense. And yet that's the term for it. So to live somewhere is to die and go back. It's to die and return. You know what I'm saying? I just don't think people use their logic enough. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. Because see, new things really can't be created. If so, I mean, we repeat history. And the cycle of life is a life cycle, meaning it moved like this, right? That's why you got some people that believe in reincarnation. They feel like when you die, you're reborn. Because they understand that there's a life cycle, even in the area of that. I don't know if I fully agree and believe in that reincarnation of the rebirth or whatnot, right? Dying and returning. But I can say that I do believe that seeming nothing is ever new. Because if something was created as new, right, then we wouldn't constantly have to repeat ourselves in the area of history and taking old information and creating new things, which is never new. So it's the same thing with this whole thing of heaven existing. That thing I feel is not a new thing. That's something that's so different than earth itself. See, to be born into something is to return to it. Why do you think when people die, their bodies go back into the ground? So they're a particle formed together by procreation, right? And yet to return to the very thing you came from is to go back to earth. Why is that? Why when humans die, they return back to earth? So it's the same thing with spirit. Your spirit has to return back to somewhere, right? And if you didn't come from hell, then why would you return back to hell? That don't make sense. Unless you're returning back to earth. See what I'm saying? You gotta look more deeper into stuff and use your thought processes. My next video, I'm gonna remake another video and make it shorter in the area of even this, returning as into going back. All this back and forth, even in questioning. To live is to die. So, in order for me to be born, I have to come from something. And in order for me to die, I have to return. I have to go in reverse and go back. What am I going back to actually? The human body, once it's formed through a human here on earth, that human body has to return back to earth. So when the spirit is propelled here, the spirit has to return back to some place. Why would that spirit go back to hell? That doesn't make sense at all. So yeah, I'm not with the death penalty and I'm not against it. You know what I'm saying? I'm right in the middle. I'm the observer looking in, trying to make sense of it all. I'm not with it and I'm not against it. What do you think and feel about it? Going.